blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right. Welcome, CoCo Cruisers. Welcome back to the episode number 61 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. I, of course, am John Linville, joined by our indomitable co-hosts. Let's see, Mr. Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, everyone.
Mr. Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
And, of course, Mr. Boise Pete. Hello, Boise.
Hello.
How is everyone doing? Time keeps marching on.
It's summer.
Yeah, summer. Still no sign of CoCo Fest. Not looking super good. Well, there's a Glenside picnic in September that might have to do as a CoCo Fest. I'm not sure how big the draw will be of that. There's a chance that they're going to work out something in coordination with the VCF Midwest folks. I don't have any details. Doesn't sound like it's an airtight thing, but it might happen. Who knows? When we find out, we'll let you know. For now, the only live Tandy event we know of still on the books, of course, is Tandy Assembly, which is coming up on 4 months away. That should be a big event. Happy times, hopefully. You never know unless the monster plague rears its head again, scares us all into staying at home. Hopefully that won't be happening.
Fingers crossed.
Who's been up to something good or no good, whatever? What you been working on? Neil, I know you've got something brewing.
Yeah, I got a few things brewing, actually. I've finished the production of 3D Monster Maze, Evan Wright's new game. So I got all the cartridges made, and I'm just folding the boxes now and putting the manuals in them. So that's going to be announced. Well, by the time you hear this podcast, it'll be announced for sure and
Cool.
for sale. And also heard exclusively here on the CoCo Crew Podcast, the Gamester, that's what we're calling it, arcade joystick is going to be ready.
All right.
So I'm excited to release that.
Very exciting. Do you need to pronounce that with an Australian accent? GameStar. That's a terrible Australian accent.
Yeah, give a little more edge, you know.
People call me the Gamester of Love.
That's a good one.
Maybe we should switch to the German accent or something, and then, relaxing. Well, anyway, cool. That's exciting. Got some stuff going on. Let's see, what have I been doing? Well, been thinking about maybe getting a little bit back into some coding. I haven't actually done it, so I guess it comes to a big nothing. What about you boys? Are you doing anything lately?
Well, I'm still putting out episodes of the CoCo Collector, and
Cool.
I have some interesting episodes coming out soon. They'll be unique, I think. And I'm doing some spring cleaning in my massive CoCo collection, finding lots of duplicates and making them available for sale. So
Awesome.
that's been fun.
Cool. What about you, Mike? Anything cool? I know work's been swallowing you lately.
Yeah, it has been swallowing me lately, but I got a big stack of CoCos that need some repairs.
Cool. Well, at least there's something going on, right? What about any acquisitions? Anybody pick up anything neat or nifty or unique lately?
I actually picked up I've been looking for one for a while, a Videotex.
Oh, yeah.
I finally own one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Cool.
It's a nice shape, but of course it doesn't have the cable. So we're going to have to try to figure out a way to, make a run of these cables.
What cable is that, Neil?
It's
Serial cable?
It's a proprietary cable that goes on the DIN connector on the back of it.
Yeah, it's a phone
Your
cable.
alley.
Yeah.
It's literally the phone cable for the modem, but it's not It's not an RJ whatever jack on the back of the video text. It's a DIN plug on the back. So
Yeah.
probably not hard to make, but something you got to do.
Yeah, I would think it's too bad. If we had the Pinot, it wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah. That's available somewhere on the archives. So.
Were all those blue cases for Videotex or?
No, they're gray.
Okay. And what's the blue one? Is that an
You're thinking of the
Agristar
Ag Vision.
Well,
thing?
yeah,
Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
As far as I know, the Ag Vision is the only one that was a different color. I could be completely wrong.
Right.
If you've got one that's purple or whatever, I want it, but let me make you an offer. They're kind of useless. It's kind of like having a modem 1B or whatever, but you could maybe hook it up and with the right, if you still have an analog phone line, you could hook them up and talk 300 baud to each other or whatever, but still a nifty little artifact and something to play with. I've always thought it'd be cool to hack those into something, you know. Well, that's cool. So I picked up, finally found the Alice, the Matra Alice, that's related to the MC10, shall we say. I picked up in the box the memory expansion. So in the box, and it even came with a little booklet that's more than just an instruction card for that. It's actually got some code and stuff in there. And of course, it's all in French or en français, which my ability to understand is minimal, but still neat to hold and flip through. And, if you kind of know what you're looking at, you can make a few things out.
And if you get stuck, you got some friends here on the show.
Yeah. I figure I can, between Google Translate and a few well-placed pictures, I think I can figure it out one way or another.
That's cool.
Anyone else pick up anything recently? Been a slow time and been a sad time in the nation these days.
Yeah.
Both between the lockdowns, which are hopefully starting to lift a bit, and of course all the rioting and protesting and whatever. It's not the happiest time, let's put it that way. But I think we'll all get through it. To prove it, we're going to start by getting through the rest of this show. So why don't we take a little break, and then we'll be back with our announcements.
Learn how to use your computer for more than just games with Hot CoCo Magazine. Hot CoCo is packed with business application programs, home management help, programming tips and tutorials, product reviews, and more. Subscribe for just $24.97 for 12 issues. That's 30% off the newsstand price. Let Hot CoCo show you how much time you can save with your color computer. And save even more time with Instant CoCo, the cassette version of Hot CoCo Magazine, containing all of the programs that appear in the issue. See the latest issue of Hot CoCo Magazine for details. Hot CoCo, available at fine retailers everywhere.
Welcome back, CoCo Cruisers. Now it's time for the announcements. You are listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast, and we, of course, are available on Twitter with Twitter handle at CoCo Crew Podcast. That's, of course, at CoCoCrewPodcast. Similarly, we're available with a page on Facebook. The page on Facebook is, of course, just the CoCo Crew Podcast. If you are on the Book of Faces, come and check us out. Come join us, maybe get a little news and information, sometimes some preview announcements, and, just join the club and be cool with us. We are, of course, an audio podcast, so we are available along with our own custom RSS feed at cococrew.org. We're available through Apple Podcasts and Google Play for normal podcast downloading. Also available for streaming through the services Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. So, however you like to listen to podcasts, sure you can find us. And if for some reason you can't and you've got something that's not being satisfied, let me know and maybe I can get us on your favorite service. For some time now, we've been taking our audio podcasts and converting them into mechanically converting them into videos to put on YouTube. Not really any different from the audio show. You get a nice, entertaining waveform of our voices and some still background images. I'm told that if you are not a native English speaker, it can be helpful because YouTube offers a subtitling service. It does a pretty good job to let you know what we're saying if we say it in a funny way or with a weird accent, like Neil likes to do. So if you think that might be interesting for you, then please check out our videos on YouTube, where we have some other content available as well. Just look us up. We are, of course, a member of the Throwback Network. Throwback Network is a list of retro-themed podcasts, mostly centered around the 80s, 80s culture, 80s technology, that sort of thing. If you're an aging Gen Xer or maybe a really young baby boomer, then you could check out the Throwback Network, where you might find some extra ways to occupy some of your time after you've caught up with the CoCo Crew podcast. Similarly, we are listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. This is also a list of technology-themed podcasts, which are all centered around one or another form of 80s era technology, video game consoles, home computers, that sort of thing. So again, if you're caught up on the CoCo Crew podcast and looking for something else to listen to, then you should check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. Audio for the CoCo Crew podcast is hosted by Cyber Ears. If you have a need to host audio on the internet, whether it be your own podcast, your church, your business, then we recommend that you check out Cyber Ears, where you will get your audio on your terms. If you want to reach out to the hosts of the CoCo Crew podcast, we have a few email addresses available. The first three will reach all of the hosts. Show, SHOW, at CoCoCrew.org. That's at CoCoCrew.org. Podcast, PODCAST, at CoCoCrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org. And if for some reason you want to talk to just one of the hosts, then we've each got our own email addresses set up. Of course, I have John, JOHN, at CoCoCrew.org. Neil is Neil, NEIL, at CoCoCrew.org. Mike is Mike, MIKE, at CoCoCrew.org. And Boise is, of course, Boise, BOISY, at CoCoCrew.org. There's our standard announcements. Now we've got announcements relative to what normally would be events in the real world, but, alas, all victims, most of them at least, are somewhat victimized by the current plague or pandemic. As we've been reporting, the Dragon Meetup 2020, which was to be hosted at the Center for Computing History in Cambridge, United Kingdom, that venue still appears to be closed. As of now, I don't have any word on any likelihood of opening. It's getting awfully close to the end of June and therefore the beginning of July. Well, that one's not looking too good. I thought I saw maybe some rumblings that there might be some effort to do some kind of virtual thing. You may want to check out the Dragon group on Facebook, but I don't have anything to report here. So, alas, one down. Originally scheduled for July 21st to 26th, Kansas Fest 2020. Of course, there's now virtual Kansas Fest happening July 24th and 25th of 2020. Completely virtual events. Link is in the show notes if you are interested in registering and viewing those videos or whatever. Along the same lines, I've just become aware of this one recently. So I think it's been available or been this way for a little while, and I just had missed it. Anyway, VCF West, which is now scheduled for August 1st of 2020, it will be a virtual event, of course, due to restrictions on gatherings in the state of California. The event will be scheduled for 6 to 8 hours on Saturday, August 1st. All of the videos completed post-process, uploaded, and held by the prior weekend, July 26th. Again, the link's in the show notes. If it sounds interesting, check it out. Maybe it's something you want to do. All right. As of now, as far as we know, still scheduled, September 12th and 13th of 2020. We have, of course, VCF Midwest, held in Elmhurst, Illinois. 15th edition of VCF Midwest will take place at Waterford Banquets / Clarion Inn, Riverside Drive, Elmhurst, Illinois. I said New Jersey, I think. I'm sorry, Elmhurst, Illinois. Big difference. So in conjunction with Fall Commodore Expo, ECZC. VCF Midwest, usually a pretty cool event, usually fairly sizable. Hopefully it will be again this year. So anyway, especially if you're in or near the Midwest part of the country, in or near Illinois, Indiana, that sort of thing, you may want to be looking for an outlet, and this may be it. But of course, if you can hold on just another month or two, a month and a half, the biggest, the best, the livest, the most wonderful event on the schedule for us is, of course, Tandy Assembly 2020. Take place October 30th and 31st and November 1st in Springfield, Ohio. This will be our big event, especially with no CoCo Fest or diminished CoCo Fest. This is definitely our big Tandy event, our big event for all Tandies, our big event for CoCo. If you haven't already made your reservation, what is wrong with you?
Hey, it's the 40th anniversary of the CoCo, so.
It is the 40th anniversary of the CoCo and the 4th anniversary of Tandy Assembly, so right? So this would be a big event. I can't say enough about it. This may be the only time you get to actually meet any other Tandy or CoCo people in person this year. So, as they say, be there or be square, or be there or be beige, or something. And definitely an event you should plan to get to. All right. Well, that is the end of our announcements. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with the news.
This month, Radio Shack features great bargains on TRS-80 computer system furniture. The new deluxe terminal stand is perfect for the Model 2, 12, and 16. It rolls easily on locking casters and has 3 height adjustments of 26, 27, and 28 inches. Normally $179, it's available this month for just $129. Our budget computer table is perfect for the Model 3 or color computer. Its 48 by 24 surface affords plenty of room without taking too much space. Normally $69.95, it's just $54.95 this month at Radio Shack. Our popular desktop printer shelf is just $19.99. It features walnut veneered side panels and allows tractor feed paper underneath. It works great with the DMP 100 and 200. See these and other computer furniture bargains only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company. CQ. Amateur radio enthusiasts, turn your color computer into a complete carrier wave Morse code terminal with hardware and software from Mytronics. The KA9FSQ-CW modem plugs into the ROM pack of your color computer and interfaces to your transceiver. And the KA9FSQ translator software enables you to transmit and receive Morse code at up to 60 words per minute. This fully machine language program features split-screen transmit and receive, a 255-character keyboard buffer, and automatic CQ using your own call letters. Or try the W9AV translator. Transmit from 5 to 50 words per minute and receive at up to 30 words per minute. You also get 9 message memories and a CW practice mode. See our newest catalog for pricing on these and other products. Amateur radio solutions for your color computer from Mytronics, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And now, the news.
The first news item we have is from Guillaume Major. New version of CoCo SDC Explorer. SDCX. This is it's like an announcement on Facebook where he has released his Explorer program, which I think also works with the Super IDE and other devices, maybe even DriveWire, but it's basically a file explorer.
Yeah, it seems to be fairly popular if I'm not mistaken. It's a cool tool, nice contribution to the community, and Guillaume seems to be continuously releasing some updates. So, very cool, nice to publicize it.
Indeed. The next news item is Mines Plus for TRS-80 MC10 by Fabrizio Caruso. So this looks like an MC10 game. Mines, I'm not sure if this is like a battleship type game. I haven't looked at it closely, but hey, we might have another Jim Gary on our hands, right?
So this guy, Fabrizio, if I'm not mistaken, this is the guy who's gone around and basically tried to implement the same game for basically every retro computer he can find a C compiler for, which is a little bit strange here because despite what you might see farther down in the news, there's not really a C compiler available for the MC10. So I guess he's taking a little diversion into assembly language for this one, or maybe it's basic, I'm not sure. But anyway, he's got some fairly simple game concept that he's translated to a number of older computers, and I think it's essentially this Mines Plus, but maybe it's a different game. I don't know. You could probably do a podcast on Fabrizio himself, honestly, but it's always good to see somebody paying a little attention to the MC10.
Yep, it gets love on this show for sure. All right. The next news item. Here's why. Baking damaged reel-to-reel tapes renders them playable again by Jennifer Wallet at Ars Technica. So this looks like an article on reel-to-reel tapes, subjecting them to some type of a slight oven. I wouldn't call it too hot.
130 degrees Fahrenheit or something
130 degrees. Yep. And I guess letting them properly unwind and get the sticky residue to kind of not burn off, but kind of just make things softer so the reel-to-reel can play again. This is very interesting.
Yeah, it's neat. I've heard of this technique for various kinds of tapes and whatever, and thought it was nice how it kind of described it a little more in depth. And I don't know if it's directly applicable to, say, cassette tapes or VHS tapes or whatever else you might have around the house, but it's a neat idea. And maybe if you're desperate to save an old tape with the basic game program that you wrote when you were 10, this might be it might be the last chance.
Yeah, I couldn't afford one of those big tapes whenever I was a kid, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, the next news item, this is one that's close to the heart to me. OS 9 shell on a real CMS 9619 by Eric Folk. Eric has ported Nitrous 9, which is really cool, to I'm not sure what this board is, but it's just obviously a 6809 board. And he's using Z modem to download some modules to this board from what I can see. Looks interesting. Great work.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I mean, like you say, it's 6809, there's Nitrous 9. It's not exactly a CoCo, but, it comes pretty close.
The next news item is CoCo announcement, Nitrous 9 C compiler tool cross-chain for Linux by Walter Zambati. Looks like a CoCo list message. Walter has his own C compiler, or at least ported one. Is this a cross-compiler?
Yeah, I think this is basically the old decompiled OS 9 compiler that's been, disassembled and written in, reconstituted in C that can compile on a modern machine, something like that. I think that's where it started, at least. Yep.
That's pretty gutsy to take a C, something written in C, disassemble it, use the assembly to improve it. That's hardcore.
Yeah. Pretty neat tool. Right. And like I say, if you want to write something for Nitrous 9, but you want to do it in C on a modern machine, it's one of your better options.
No doubt. The next news item is quick update on the salt replacement front by Terry Trapp. I know that Terry has been working on a salt replacement using discrete logic. I believe he's having some success.
Yeah. One of the few custom chips in the CoCo. It's in CoCo 2 and CoCo 3. But it's not really that complicated. The internals are somewhat reasonably well documented in the technical reference manual. And so I guess he's using that information and whatever electronic engineering skills he's got from other sources and trying to put something together to repair CoCos that would otherwise be, not worth their salt.
That's a good one. That's right. No, it's a good project to pursue. Glad to see it being done. All right, the next news item is typing attack. Found my old game in the June 1985 issue of Australia CoCo Micro Magazine by Darren Ottery. It looks like Darren, who's a member of the CoCo Facebook group, is talking about a game that he wrote that got published. That's pretty cool. Back in 1985, I guess he found it, and he looks like he posted the cassette file or something.
Yeah, it's the MC10. I don't know who in the MC10 world decided to use a C10 version or C10 for the extension versus CAS. I guess they thought it would help them keep their MC10 files separate from their CoCo files. But as far as I can tell, they're actually the same format. And occasionally you'll see someone dispute that, but I haven't actually seen any technical proof. And considering I use the Toolshed tools for producing CAS files to be able to produce stuff that runs on the MC10, pretty sure it still works.
I know I've taken some of those and just changed the extension to CAS.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just my aside. I've got a few issues of this Myco magazine. It looked like a kind of cool little, it's akin to some of the CoCo magazines that were available. Not quite as nice as a Rainbow, for example, or even Hot CoCo or whatever. But it's a nicer than the average, club newsletter, whatever.
Is it Myco or Micro? Is it misspelled?
It's Myco because it's an MC10, so it's like Micro CoCo or whatever.
Got it. Okay. All right, cool.
Pretty cool.
All right, good job. The next news item is an idiot's guide to Pi DriveWire, DW term, and Telnet BBSing by OG Stevie Stroh. This is a YouTube video that Steve Strobridge put together in sort of a didactic form to show people how to set up Pi DriveWire, use DW term on a CoCo. And being the creator of DriveWire, it's always good to see people continuing to use the product and making videos about it. So pleased to see this.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's good work by Steve, and I think he's been one who's been at least a little maybe dismissive of DriveWire in the past, more for fun than anything else. And it's good to see him actually kind of take it seriously and give it a try and actually pass on what he learned. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no doubt. Good work.
We have one from Rick Adams. At some point, you need to shoot the developers and ship the product. And just like that, Temple of Rom 2 is released. And he's got it released. It's open source, so you can actually design your own game levels. He has an online utility. But the catch is you have to be good at Photoshop.
Yeah.
And he's accepting donations, but he said don't stress about it. If you feel free, leave a donation. So looks like a really cool game. Takes advantage of the CoCo 3, the RGB color set. Also uses the Boomerang E2 board, the little LED on it. That'll get that cute little LED going, apparently.
Yeah, it's hitting the important points there.
Yeah. Yeah, there you have it. If you're looking for a new game to play on your CoCo 3, Temple of Rom 2.
That's pretty cool. Nice to see I'm not the only one who still finds it tempting to go back and work on an older project.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's cool. Good to see Rick's been producing some nice content in the past several years since he's been kind of reintroduced to the community and been a part of us. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true. He's been doing a lot of coding, so it's good to see. All right, our next news article is from Tony Jewell. Done the finishing touches to my Wi-Fi enabled Dragon.
Pretty cool. I mean, he's got some pictures and his pretty sharp looking painted black Dragon as well. But the Dragon 64 had an internal RS-232 chip with an ACIA.
Mm-hmm.
This is Dragon 32, but I think he's kind of hacked in the ACIA that would have been there for the Dragon 64, and then on the front of that he's hung one of these internet modems or whatever.
Oh, I see. Okay, what he's done here. Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Yeah,
it keeps it internal.
Cool. Yeah, nice little project on our Dragon cousin there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it looks nicely painted too.
Yeah, the paint does look like a good paint job.
Yeah. All right, our next news article is from Tormod Volden. CMOC 0.1.65 for Windows without Cygwin.
CMOC is released as a source code package. Of course, CMOC is a C-like, pretty much C whatever compiler for the 6809 that targets the CoCo, and I think maybe you can target the Vectrix or some other stuff with it. But anyway, it's released as source, and when you release stuff as source, sometimes you have to rely on somebody else to do the building. That's where, if you're a Linux person, that's where Linux distributions come in, as they build a bunch of source into actual programs or whatever. And in this case, a lot of cases for the useful tools, you have people who say, yeah, but I'm a Windows user, and Windows by default doesn't even come with a compiler. So what do they do? Well, somebody has to build it, and that's what Tormod has done here. A Windows version of CMOC. That's cool. He knows without Cygwin. Cygwin is a kind of a cheat that sort of installs almost a Linux emulator per se. It's not quite true, but something like a Linux emulator that lets you build Linux programs and run them under Windows. But it's not quite a natural environment, so some people don't like it. And so he's not using Cygwin, and so you get a more natural Windows program experience with this. So if you are a Windows user and you want to program in CMOC, Tormod has done you a lovely favor.
Yeah, this is for you. Yeah, I've used Sigwin before. I mean, it's not bad, but it's a little clunky, to get going there installed. But no, that's good to see. I mean, it's gonna save a lot of time for people too.
Yep.
You don't have to mess around with that. So yeah, that's good work. All right, our next news article is from Nigel Cleaver. 6522 Versatile Interface Adapter, VIA. That looks pretty cool. I was reading up on this here.
Yeah, well, so I mean, he's building like a homebrew 6502 based machine, I think.
Yeah.
But he's done a pretty good write-up here on the 6522 chip and how to interface with it and do some other stuff or whatever. So if you're a budding hardware hacker for the CoCo, there's not a more versatile chip that you could hang off your CoCo than the 6522, even more versatile than the 6820, 2122 that you see more commonly. So if you're thinking about something to build a card for your CoCo and then want to plug wires into other things from there, you should think about building it around the 6522.
Yeah,
so take a look.
Yeah. All right, next news article. This one's right up my alley, actually. It's from Benj Edwards. How to read a floppy disk on a modern PC or Mac. This is a really neat article. I was going through it. It shows you all different ways to extract and get data from old floppy disks on a modern PC, either via USB drives or using disk controllers, proprietary disk controllers. That's a really interesting article.
He seemed to really capture most or all of the options, or at least all the practical ones.
I see that, yeah.
From a very little kind of technical acumen down to quite a bit of technical acumen. Seems pretty cool.
For the different platforms, too.
Yeah. I've never met Benj. I think he's almost my neighbor. I think he lives down at Raleigh.
Wow.
I should reach out at some point.
Yeah, you guys got to meet up sometime.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a very useful article. We're all gonna need to get that data at some point. So.
Yep.
All right. Next news article is from Jeff Jonassen. C compiler self-hosting on Nitrous 9 again.
Yeah. So this is in contrast to the Walters and Body story that Boise covered. This is for a tool chain that actually runs on under Nitrous 9 on the CoCo, so that's the self-hosting part. So he's got that put together now, which is not quite as straightforward as it seems like it would be. But this was also, this thread, I think, or related to this thread, was actually the inspiration for last month's C-No-Y tech segment. Anyway, it's related there. If you want to write C code and build it on the CoCo, Jeff here, or Deke, is probably the guy you should talk to if you haven't figured it out for yourself.
That's great. Next news article is from Joel. Is it Huey?
It's AV.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Anyway, so he's dug up his MM1. He's spun right up in the MM1 scene, so that's great to see. He's got a video here showing MM1 computer 256 color display and strange color artifacts. It's a YouTube video he's posted up.
Yeah, a couple of them.
Yeah, he's getting right into it again. So
it's cool to see people get excited and pull out some of their older stuff, especially the more unique things, that are in the community.
Yeah, for sure.
Get them running and excite people, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So. Cool. Thanks, Joel.
Yep. All right. My last news article is from Ed Snyder. He's posted a couple of Gimme X related videos. This was just before he did his first shipment of the beta boards for people to test. Yeah,
it's exciting stuff. Some hardware porn or whatever. If you're chomping at the bit to rip out your Gimme chip and plug in a Gimme X, then this should get your heart pumping. Potentially a big development in the world, in the CoCo world. It remains to be seen what software will come along to make use of it, who's going to write it, that sort of thing. So there you go. It's exciting stuff. If you're foaming at the mouth for your Gimme X boards, Ed is working and will hopefully be able to feed your hunger and quench your thirst for the Gimme X. It should be coming before too long.
Royal Danish celebrity Lutonia Cruise Lines is proud to bring you the ultimate CoCo cruise. Join us for 8 days and 7 nights aboard the magnificent and luxurious CoCo Explorer 3. Embarkation from beautiful Punta Loyola, Argentina. While aboard, enjoy the 24-hour computer show floor. The 7-night sailing will welcome special guests William Barton Jr., Forrest Mims III, and Stephen Disney. On day 2, get your cameras ready for a brief exploration of the mysterious Calixto Island. On days 3 and 4, the spectacular Lonnie Falkland Islands. Spend your days exploring the beaches and mountains, or just stay aboard and continue non-stop computing. Each evening is culminated by capturing your choice of exotic wildlife and presenting them to our 5-star master chefs, who will prepare and serve them in a glorious CoCo Fest-style barbecue feast. Spend the remaining days at sea, programming, game playing, or discussing the CoCo with friends. Fares start at just $34.60 for an inside cabin. It's not just a cruise, it's a CoCo cruise.
Call your travel professional. Visit RoyalDanishCelebrityLutonia.com. Ship registry, Lutonia, Milos, Panama, Luxembourg.
The color computer is a powerful home computer, but if you've tried writing programs, you'll quickly learn that editing is tedious and requires either perfection or a lot of retyping. Stop suffering. Get the WorkSaver from Platinum Software. The WorkSaver features full-screen editing. Simply use arrow keys to move to anywhere on the screen and instantly make changes to your code. Change line numbers, join lines together, duplicate lines and place them anywhere in your code. Bring up arrays on screen and edit them directly. Use 2-stroke sequences for full keywords. Enjoy automatic line numbering and a numeric keypad. These powerful features and many more are made even easier with the included keyboard template.
I was excited about the idea behind it. I was curious whether or not it was going to be able to execute like it said it was going to. Absolutely flawless. I'm super happy with the quality. I'm super happy with the overall engineering of this. And obviously, I'm even more happy with what it gets done, how well it does it, and the short amount of time it takes.
The WorkSaver is just $30 plus shipping and handling and includes a 28-page manual plus the keyboard template. Save yourself hours of typing and make your programming experience what it should have been in the first place with the WorkSaver, only from Platinum Software. Plattsburgh, New York.
The next one comes, this actually comes from the OG Steve Stroh, or Steve Strobridge, as you may know him. CoCo Tutorials YouTube playlist. This was announced to the mailing list. Over the past 5 years, I've been involved with learning all about the CoCo again. I've been creating and posting a variety of videos, learning how to set up emulators, and now even fancy things like DriveWire and using a PC as a modern development environment. So probably somewhere on this list is the DriveWire for Dummies or whatever. That's Idiot's Guide to DriveWire. But he's got several other things here listed. A lot of his videos are here watching me play this game, that sort of stuff, which is fine and cool. And if you like that, then it can be entertaining. But it's a little bit different twist for him, so I thought it was worth covering. If you want to learn some stuff, maybe check it out. See what Steve knows and see what he can help you know. Cool to see. Nice to see it. Thanks, Steve. Okay, moving on. Yados 0.5A and up compatible HDD image. So this is kind of a little bit of a combo announcement. It really is also that Greg Gordon had recently released his Yados 0.5A, I guess, which of course is an alternative disk operating system that solves some needs for some people. I guess is the main thing. It kind of the key to Yados, I guess, is it has sort of a driver infrastructure that lets you plug in control software for different kinds of hardware as one of the features of the DOS itself. So it's a little like a more modern style operating system underneath, but then on top, where you actually interact with it is still pretty much color basic or color DOS or disk extended color basic. There you go. And so that's fine and cool. Ron is taking advantage of that, put together a hard drive image that has a whole bunch of software in there. He kind of did a demo for us privately, and then I was kind of expecting he was going to make a video, but we didn't get a video. Let's put it that way. But so either way, he's made it available to the community. This disk image stuff says over 3,000 virtual floppy disks. They come from the Color Computer Archive website. It's a good service for the community, compatible with Super ID, controllers, CoCo SDC, the SD card on the CoCo FPGA, CoCo 3 FPGA, the emulators, whatever. There's probably no better way or no easier way to get anywhere near as big an exposure to CoCo software. So, if that sounds good to you, then I'd recommend you check it out. Good way to experience both CoCo software and get a little taste of Yadas. Very cool. That was from Ron Klein. Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Ron. So moving on, we've got an article by Kyle Orland at Ars Technica. Kind of touches on something we've covered before. It says Billy Mitchell takes his Donkey Kong high score cheating case to court. He's got a defamation lawsuit against Twin Galaxies, who had taken away some recognition of video game records on Donkey Kong in particular. I think maybe his Pac-Man record as well was at stake. I don't know. Billy's a flamboyant character. He's shows up in a couple of different arcade-related documentaries and whatever. He's definitely a bit of a rakish rogue or whatever. It's hard not to like him, but others have become convinced that he cheated on some of his record-breaking attempts. There appeared to be some proof of that in the past. I know recently, I don't know if it's covered in this story, but recently it sounded like there was a judgment that maybe it wasn't proven, and his Guinness Book of Records have been restored. I don't know. It's all a big mess, really. But if it's interesting to you, if nothing else, it's a distraction from bigger problems in the world. Go and check it out. Let us know what you think of old Billy Mitchell. I'd love for him to come by my place and play and do a little demo on my Donkey Kong machine. So maybe we could have some hot sauce wings and
you still have
hang out, see if he gets any hot sauce on his white tie or whatever.
You still have it in your living room?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
All right. So let's see. Moving on. Okay. Again, I mentioned it might be contradicting what I said earlier about there being a lack of C compiler for the MC10. There's something in progress here. So from the venerable Alan Cox, who's someone of prominence in the open source and Linux worlds, who also has a taste for retro computers in general. He's the guy behind Fusix, which is a Unix-style kernel that runs on a variety of retro computers. Seems to have a sweet spot for the MC10. Alan has taken it on himself to work towards a C compiler for the 6800/6803/6303 processors, but basically targeting the MC10. So he started with the CC65 compiler, which is out there on the 6502 world, able to target the Apple II and the Commodore 64, the Atari 8-bits. It's a Unix-style C tool chain, kind of was sitting there plump for the taking to some degree, for somebody to come and do something with it. For whatever reason, the 6800 processor doesn't have a lot of compiler support out in the world, even though it was a predecessor to the 6809, though maybe not a direct descendant or direct ancestor, but code-wise. But predecessor to the 68HC11, which has a lot of C compiler coverage or other compiler coverage. But as someone who looked very hard, even there's a C compiler out there from the Flex days that claims to target the 6800, but what it does is it actually targets a virtual machine, and there's an implementation of the virtual machine for the 6800, so not exactly a 6800 compiler. You know what I mean? Anyway, the 6502 has some structural similarities to the 6800. Alan kind of identified those and kind of took it on to try to modify the CC65 code generator to target the 6800 or the 6803 processors. When I first looked at this, it was kind of like, well, he started something, but I'm not sure where it's going. Looking at it right now, he's got commits from a few days ago, so it's something he's still still working on. There's appears to be some work to target the MC10. Not clear how complete it is. I don't see anything saying, yes, I can compile for the MC10, for example. If you're a C compiler person with a love for the MC10, you may want to join in here with Alan and see what you can come up with, and see if you can get a decent C compiler running on your MC10. I think everyone would be happy with that. Even better if you somehow make it actually continue to target back to the plain 6800 processor and the variety of machines that were out there that use that. So there you go. Your challenge is set. What do you think, Neil? You going to work on that?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'd like to.
Not your thing, I guess.
That's not no.
The next one, this actually comes from Eric Canales. Eric is, of course, the current president of Glenside. He succeeded me in that role. He posted the Motorola 6809/6309, 6800 assembly language programming group. I just finished up a handy tool for LWSM and MAME called LST number 2 CMT, which is probably list to whatever CMT stands for. Maybe list to comment. Anyway, lets you put your source code in the MAME debugger for easier troubleshooting. So when you start MAME with a debug option, it'll bring up what looks like a monitor program style of output, or bare disassembly of whatever code is about to be executed. But it literally is just the disassembly, the translated code. But this tool takes your original source code and formats it in a way that the debugger and MAME can kind of understand and correlate where you are in the code, where you are in the machine code, to where the corresponding source code is, and therefore allow you to see things like labels and comments and other things while you're disassembling or while you're stepping through code or whatever. Pretty handy tool. He's got compiled executables available, apparently written in something called Pure Basic, and he's made that source code available. Sounds like a cool tool. I haven't had a chance to try it out, but if you have, or if you do, love to hear from you and let us know how it works. Thank you, Eric. Okay, the next one comes from Per Surratt, Dragon Riding Spaniard. And he says, the game Foggy's Quest that I've been using to test the port of the AGD, that's Arcade Game Designer, the AGD engine for the video chip V9958 is already finished. Of course, the V9958 is a Texas Instruments video chip. It's one of the ones, or it's in the line of chips that was used by the MSX. Interestingly enough, at one point, was it Pear, I guess, that did the WordPack 2, or was that someone else? WordPack 2 Plus, rather. I think that was someone else. Felipe, maybe?
Yeah, Felipe.
So anyway, there is a video card for the CoCo available. It's an alternative video card that uses this chip. Presumably it works with the Dragon as well. If you look at the pictures included, they're pretty amazing looking pictures. And so you combine the Arcade Game Designer software with this WordPack 2 hardware, and I think ultimately the notion is to then include the Ed Snyder's CoCo PSG audio hardware or the equivalent, and be able to report these other, weird and foreign or software titles. Not original CoCo software by any means, but looks pretty fun either way. So it's something to get on your CoCo and try. It looks pretty cool. Definitely a good technical achievement. Once again from Pear. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, it's impressive.
All right, here we go. The first sighting of this month of a post or something from Mr. Jim Gary. It says Mahjong beta. So he's got what appears to be a version of Mahjong done in Simagraphics 4. I guess this is on the MC10. And the Mahjong titles are made up from, again, from SG4 combinations. It looks like probably 2x2 blocks, which is probably enough to get at least distinguished character tiles. Wouldn't have thought of it. Usually think of the Mahjong tiles being a little higher resolution or whatever, but this is one of Jim's talents, is he can kind of envision how to use what he's got and make something worthy out of it. And he seems to have certainly done so here with his Mahjong beta so far.
Looks cool.
Yeah, good job, Jim. It's really cool stuff.
Amazing what you can do with that SG4.
Amazing, really.
Dude, you have to see this.
What is it?
It's the Proto EEPROM CC from Prototech. I can program 2716, 2732, and 2732A EEPROMs.
So my EEPROM burner can do that.
This one has 4K of RAM, so you can create and debug your RAM image before you burn your ROM.
Wow.
It's fully powered by the color computer, no wall warts or cords to get tangled. It just plugs into your cartridge slot.
Nice.
You can program the RAM or ROM directly from BASIC or assembly language.
Where can I get one?
It's just $149.95 from Prototech.
That's a bargain.
The Proto EEPROM CC from Prototech, Boulder, Colorado.
If you own a CoCo, you need to visit us at CMD Microcomputer Services Limited. We're your TRS-80 specialists in Canada. Software from Adventure International, Computerware, Tom Mix, Med Systems, Spectral, Prickly Pear, Programmers Guild, Cognitech, Prism, Datasoft, and more. Plus, we offer a full line of disk drives, Epson printers, Mark Data keyboard kits, Lyco and Craft joysticks, books, and magazines. Come to CMD Microcomputer Systems Limited, Edmonton, Alberta.
All right, so moving on. Microsoft open sources GW Basic, which sounds pretty exciting at first, right? And maybe it is. I mean, it's cool. GW Basic, GW, what the GW stands for is up to debate. Some people say GWiz. Anyway, Microsoft GW Basic. Now, this was a form of BASIC that shipped as part of MS-DOS, which corresponded similar to the BASIC that was in ROM on the IBM PC. But for those of us who grew up using, Microsoft's Color Basic or AppleSoft, which of course is Microsoft Basic on the Apple, or even the Commodore Basics, we'll probably found that GW Basic was rather familiar because, of course, it was Microsoft Basic. So it sounds pretty exciting. You're going to open source it, and then you can maybe port it to stuff or whatever, and you certainly could. But you got to keep in mind that what they open source is, of course, assembly language for the 8088 processor as used on the IBM PC. And so that's not a complete hindrance to usefulness, but it probably limits most people's enthusiasm. Still pretty cool. You're probably not going to be jumping in and adding a bunch of keywords or whatever unless you happen to be a frustrated 8088 assembly programmer. But there might be some answers there if you're looking, depending on what questions you have. Still kind of neat to think that there's a company out there with some ties to the past that is not totally abandoning the past, and kind of Microsoft is a changing company, as you can see from how much they've embraced Linux over the years, for example. If you couldn't imagine anybody, the company run by Ballmer and Gates in the 90s, ever open sourcing anything, well, it's time to reevaluate. So.
Okay, our next one is called Scapegoating COBOL. This is by Mar Hicks. This is a video, pretty interesting video. If you may have heard in the news, anybody who works around computers would have heard it, that when COVID-19, the pandemic shut down so many businesses and many people were laid off and couldn't work for several weeks, several of the states changed the guidelines to allow more people to collect unemployment. Most of the states are using an unemployment system that was written in COBOL, and they were getting overwhelmed. The systems are getting overwhelmed, so people were complaining about that. And then you heard this big call that, hey, we need COBOL programmers. We don't have any COBOL programmers. Basically, the gist of the story is that COBOL has been getting the blame for it because it's such an old language and people make fun of it because it's old, yet it's not a whole lot older than C. Really what this is, and this video kind of explains it, is there's two things. The systems have been so reliable for so long that they basically laid off all the programmers that maintain the code years ago.
Yeah.
And it's really a scaling issue because these systems were designed for, well, I'll just make up a number, 15% unemployment. Well, when COVID-19 hit, the pandemic hit, we were seeing states with, 25 and 30% unemployment for that period. And the systems just weren't designed to scale, so they were just completely overwhelmed. So it's really kind of an architecture issue, not so much that COBOL is the issue. And then when they wanted to scale up, they didn't have any of their good programmers to update the code.
Typical government snafu, I think. Kind of, or any kind of big corporation, whatever. Some bean counter decides that you don't really need to be paying all these people to fix problems that aren't occurring. So you fire them all, and then eventually you do have the problems occur, and you got nobody to fix them. Right. And then, of course, then the scapegoating starts, and it's like, well, we shouldn't be on these old COBOL machines in the first place, except that you were on them because they've worked fine for 40 years. So, I don't know. It probably surprises nobody with any lick of sense. But again, talking about politicians. So, anyway, it was a good analysis, I thought, by Mrs. Hicks there. That worth watching.
Yeah, definitely. All right, our next one is from Atari Age, Coop 3R.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce
it. Looks like it's supposed to probably be Cooper.
Yeah.
Spelled with a 3 and a 0 and an R. From Atari Age, and this is close to our hearts because we just had a similar discussion not too long ago, a few episodes ago. What makes a system retro? An open discussion. So this is at the Atari Age forums, and they're having the same kind of conversation. Well, what makes it retro? There's some interesting discussion there, some similar along to, for instance, there's one that says no longer supported or having software produced by a first party, similar to kind of things that we were talking about, what makes it retro. And of course, it's everybody's opinion. So it's interesting discussion, and interesting because we just had it here on the show.
Yeah, I mean, the topic pops up again and again. We'll probably have the same topic here eventually.
Sure.
But, when they pop up, I like to kind of point people at them and see what inspires them, or see if there's any insight to be had, that kind of thing. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, this one is from Michael Klein. Interesting new program from the archive. Music sheet paper for the DMP 105. So if you have a working DMP 105, you can print music sheet paper.
Yeah, pretty cool. I think there are. I had trouble finding it, but I think there is software out there that can emulate the DMP printers reasonably well under certain circumstances. You figure out where they are, maybe you can put two and two together, hook up an emulator, cross your fingers, hope. In fact, there's probably easier ways to get a music line paper, but anyway, some people might find it interesting. It seemed like something that was always popular was for people to use their computers to do a little composing or playing with music. So if that's you, then there's something for you to do.
Yeah, check it out. This next one is from Blue Arcus at archiveworldofdragon.org. Dragon mass storage devices comparison. This is kind of cool. It's basically a chart, a table that lines up all of the various mass storage solutions, like the CoCo SDC and DriveWire, and the Dragon version of their SD card.
The Dragon MMC.
Yeah, the Dragon MMC and Dragon Drive, GoTech. So it's kind of cool. It shows you different types of media they use.
Well, nice to see some comparison and some analysis, and
yeah,
not just an assumption that everybody needs the exact same thing.
Right. It gives you a nice single page, concise spreadsheet. So well done.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, this next one is from at Waterpub at YouTube. This one's really cool. This is a 1979 video from Tektronix explaining analog video color. So this is very cool. I mean, this goes way down bare bones, basic color and television technology. Definitely worth a watch, and just to see the clothes.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, this it took me literally years of poking around and trying to glean a little understanding here and there on my own. If I could have had this video, I could have saved myself years of poking around trying to understand this stuff. partly because I didn't really try to understand NTSC video until it was already illegal or or whatever. Not illegal, but no longer really used. But very cool. Help you understand. It's really neat how I've heard people say that back in the day, color TV, that it was really black and white TV, that they somehow colored it. And which really made no sense until I understood, and it kind of really is a black and white signal that they've just colored, like like with a crayon.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat how they managed to do it, and again, it kind of goes along with the continuous. Anytime I find something about NTSC that suggests that how artifacting works, and can point out the it's not just some weird glitch. There's actual math involved. It really does. It doesn't just decide to show you the color yellow. Somebody actually made it happen. And that's true for artifact color and even 256 or 8-bit color artifacts on the CoCo 3, for example. And yeah, it's NTSC, and there's reasons why it works for NTSC but won't work for PAL. More than one reason, really, but I don't know. It's just my own little vendetta, I guess. But if I keep finding information on it, if I think it's interesting, I'm going to keep sharing it.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure. Our next one is from Louis Rossman. If you're not familiar with Louis Rossman, definitely look him up on YouTube. Interesting videos. He repairs laptops and different kinds of computers. There's videos of that, and he talks about what's good and bad about different computers. And this article is The Best Right to Repair Testimony in Maryland Came from a 16-year-old. Yeah, there's kind of an ongoing companies trying to, legally prevent people from repairing their stuff, so that they can keep all that business for themselves, not supplying schematics and things like that. And in these hearings, they're giving testimony of, hey, it costs me $200 or $300 if I have this fixed somewhere, but I have the ability to fix it myself as long as I have, the data available. So when the guy's a 16, it's pretty good testimony.
Yeah, it's important. It's something that's near to my heart. Something that comes up in open source circles. It's always just seemed more fair to me too. I mean, just because you build something to then hold on to some claim of ownership to anything, so that if anybody ever wants to repair it, they have to come back to you. Always seemed wrong to me, Yeah. And
the right to repair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, watch the video, judge for yourself. It's a worthwhile topic.
Definitely.
The other thing I'll add to that is I follow this Louis Rossman guy quite a bit, actually, because he does a lot of the work that I do. I do a lot of repair and stuff here. The other problem is getting parts. Certain companies will lock parts, and you just can't get, if you just need like a component for, say, a motherboard. I mean, I think that's kind of wrong as well. Especially when that machine is out of production. It's
right, or they'll want you to pay some huge fee to be some certified technician before they'll sell you parts, and you got you got to spend $5,000 before you're allowed to order parts from them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good movement.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, these next two are kind of announcements. The first one is from info@livingcomputers.org. The Living Computer Museum and Labs is closing for now. This is due to COVID-19, so they're shutting their doors until further notice. Unfortunate, but the reality in today's world.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure we all have to admit that it's a bit of a niche.
Yeah. And then the next one is from info@computermuseumofamerica.org, and they're announcing the opposite. The Computer Museum of America is located in Roswell, Georgia. They're opening their doors beginning June 5th, so they're opening back up. That's a good thing.
Yeah, should be over now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my little ray of hope. So I thought that was something good to end on. So
yeah, good news.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that brings us to the end of the news segment. So why don't we take another little break? Maybe go get a soda. And we'll be back with some feedback.
Tandy keeps red, red like the brake key. Tandy keeps green, green like the TV. Tandy makes all of your dreams come true. Tandy's got the magic of CoCo too.
TRS-80 color computers are better than ever. We improved our most popular family computers with a compact white case, low-profile electric typewriter quality keyboard, and reduced the system price. Come see the new TRS-80 color computer too.
Tandy makes a product that's brand new. Tandy's got the magic. Tandy's got the magic. Tandy's got the magic of CoCo too.
You know what's going on again at Radio Shack? That's right, honey. It's Tandy's Sweet System Sale. You get a Tandy Color Computer 3 with a dual FD501 disk drive system and your choice of either a DMP105 printer or a DCM212 modem for just $599. Most folks' $599 deal is not a system, honey.
These Apple disk drives are just $5.99.
That's not a system. Radio Shack is the place for a full system. Tandy's Sweet System Sale. Come and get it while it lasts, because it will not last long.
Love that CoCo from Tandy.
Okay, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. Now it's time for a little feedback. First one, I think, is this is our inspiring message or hopeful message of the time. Comes from Mr. Robert Murphy, or I've sometimes seen Robert Allen Murphy. I've also seen Robert the Fugitive Murphy, something like that. Anyway, Robert Murphy.
Exile in Paradise.
Yeah, that's right. Exile in Paradise. There you go. Says, Tandy assembly needs to happen. Hoping all of the stars line up for that. Well, I'll tell you what, me too, Robert, for sure.
Definitely. All of us.
Oh, just got to get out of the house and do something nerdy or whatever.
Yeah.
My kids say I don't need to go anywhere to do that, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I really hope we get to have that event. I would have thought by now it'd been, just a matter of, things that happen, but it almost seems like it's getting less likely as time progresses. So let's hope things turn back around. So the next one, so we had a little bit of exciting or maybe unpleasant feedback in the last episode about something about me having dug my own grave and how terrible I am downing people's projects or whatever, that I kind of disputed because I just don't see it as where I've ever done that. And I got a little feedback from Kieran Anscombe. He had a suggestion. He says, is it possible some Americans just don't know how to understand the accents of other bits of America? And, I thought that was an interesting take. Kieran's in the UK. Despite being a smaller geographic footprint, I think they have even more diversity of accents by far than we do. If you've never sat in a room and simultaneously heard accents coming from Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and and that one guy from God knows where in London, there's an amazing amount of difference in accents and word choice and whatever. It made me think of a story from my own past, going over to California many years ago now, but I went over there with a friend and on a business excursion, shall we say. We went out to dinner one night, just a plain old kind of run-of-the-mill sort of steakhouse place or whatever. And the waitress asked me what I wanted to drink, I think, something like that, and I kind of just sort of a Coke or Pepsi kind of thing. Originally asked for one, and they didn't have it, and then the other, and I frowned, and then said, what about something else? And finally she offered up, said, well, we've got this, and I said, okay, well, that'll be fine. And then she just frowned at me, and I was like, that'll be fine. You don't want anything? It's like, no, I said it'll be fine. And and so in my mind, saying that'll be fine is like saying, oh, that sounds great, But to her, when I said, that's fine, it's like, fine, I don't want that, and so you do get these kind of interactions where people just don't quite get what each other's saying. Kind of, the old joke about the Brits and the Americans being separated by a common language. Maybe it extends within the country, too, where we don't always understand each other. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's just the way I say things, or hold my head, or say things, choose words or whatever. Maybe that's part of why some people seem to have gotten the impression that I was somehow hypercritical of people's some people's projects, when I certainly have never intended to be. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kieran's wrong. Maybe we're both just full of crap. Who knows? But I liked it, and I thought it was a reasonable interpretation. And there you go, food for thought. Anyway, well, that's all the feedback we have for this month. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with a host discussion.
Boy, the cartridge games we played.
All the aliens we slayed.
Man, it was your own arcade.
Those were the days.
Loaded games from tape cassette.
Floppy drives and curdy debt.
Wasted time with no regret.
Those were the days.
And you didn't need a hard drive then.
Line printers replaced your pen. Mister, we could use a man like Charles Tandy again.
BBS's ruled the day.
CompuServe took half your pay.
Fed it all in 64K.
Those were the days.
We sat and stared at glowing screens.
Typed in code from magazines.
Everybody's loyalty was determined by their machines. When you had a job to do,
Basic always got you through.
accidentally typing new. Those were the days.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, now for your favorite part, everybody's favorite show, or favorite part of this show. This is where you get to hear what we think. I know that's what you paid for, right? So we're gonna drop the heady stuff and not be quite so analytical or whatever this time. We're just gonna ask the host kind of what did you do with your CoCo back in the day? What CoCo software did you use the most back in the day? And what were you doing to have fun with your CoCo? And so I'll start off in that we didn't, I was a kid. Didn't have that much money for stuff like that. I wasn't, I was probably, if anything, a little spoiled, but not as spoiled as some. What I mostly used was Color Basic. And then beyond that, I used Color Compact with a modem, a little too much, running up the phone bills, and not even the phone bills so much as the CompuServe bills. Mostly, I wrote my own software in BASIC and kind of went from there. But so that's me. What about the rest of you? Cool.
I didn't own a CoCo 1 or 2. I owned a CoCo 3. That was my first computer ever. So I spent most time on that machine, believe it or not, just learning it. Like learning the commands, RS-DOS, and going through those nice manuals you get with it. I mean, man, those things were incredible. Because back in those days, I mean, there was still no internet. There was no way to get information other than dialing into a BBS. But even that, you had to learn how to dial into a BBS. So I spent a lot of time in those books, reading them, and then I picked up a copy of Rogue. And what amazed me with that game is I spent more time in OS 9. That was my first introduction in OS 9. When I booted that, I was like, "What's this?" It's a whole different operating system. So then I got into OS 9 and started learning that. So I actually spent a lot of time just more with the operating system, the BASIC. You could say more than anything. That was me.
Cool. Well, Mikey, you were a big time adult there in the Air Force and such. What kind of stuff were you doing?
Well, I had a CoCo 2 and Graphicom. I used that to death. I actually used it to do some video intros on tapes and stuff too, which was kind of cool.
Yeah?
Because I had a composite mod on my CoCo 2, so just pumped that into the VCR with the animation stuff you could do in Graphicom. So that was really cool in the CoCo 2. Telewriter 64, I used that to death. Later, I used CoCo Max, and AutoTerm was what I used to death on the CoCo 2. I actually worked with, Vaxes and Suns and a lot of Unix servers, so got into that with the AutoTerm, so that was fun. And when I graduated to a CoCo 3, you had a little more choices. I started using vTerm, which was a real nice terminal program on the CoCo 3. And then, of course, you had CoCo Max 3. WordPower was a great word processor. I still spin that up on my CoCo once in a while to type something out fast. But that's when I got into OS 9 big time. So I used Presto Partner. That's what I used for my work stuff and personal stuff. That was a great thing. You just press clear and get back to it, and it would pump out alerts when you had a meeting or something, and that was a nice package. I also used UUCP on OS 9 a lot because, again, that was the work I was doing was with a bunch of Unix systems, so it was cool. I could pull config files up to my CoCo, edit them, and then push them back down to the servers at work, so made it handy. VED was my other big one for an editor. I still use that on my CoCo 3.
Cool. Well, sounds productive. Boise, how about you?
My applications and programs that I use mirror pretty much everything you guys said. Mike, what you were just saying is a lot of what I did as I got on the CoCo later, sort of after I was introduced to it. But when I first got my CoCo, I used the basic interpreter a lot just to explore the language. Got into the game phase where I played adventure games and got into a few little shoot 'em ups. But as far as productivity goes, I began learning OS 9, and I used DeskMate 3 quite a bit in the late 1980s, because that, to me, was the archetype of what productivity software was all about, right? Yeah. It probably wasn't the most powerful package, but it was, to me, the most glamorous looking and the most tightly integrated for the CoCo 3, and then it ran under OS 9, which was an achievement. So when I got more serious into the operating system, obviously I moved over to things like VED, as Mike indicated. I did use CoCo Max 3 for a while for graphics and things. When I was in college, I used a lot of the OS 9 interpreters like Pascal and Basic 09 for assignments in computer science where I could. And just kind of basically more operating system tools to study the operating system and learn it, and then some of the productivity tools that I mentioned.
Cool. I'm sitting there thinking, if the chair would like to yield himself a little time to amend his testimony. The one thing I can think of that I probably did a lot more than maybe a normal person would admit, I had the chess cartridge, which, as I recall, plays not a terrible game of chess, or at least when I was 11 or whatever, it was a pretty good game of chess. In my neighborhood and in my family, even at 11, I was pretty much the only chess player, and nerdy kid with a computer and likes to play chess, but has nobody to play with. Well, I had the computer playing on the chess cartridge. I spent a lot of time learning how to play chess, and I remember the first time, maybe the only time, I don't know, that I actually beat it. Man, I about bounced and hit my head on the ceiling. I was so full of myself. But that was a lot of fun. I'm not sure there are any games other than that I played anywhere near as much. I don't know. That's what I did. Played the chess cartridge, the Peter Jennings chess cartridge, I think is the author there. So, Mr. Jennings, if you happen to listen in, thank you for a good chess game.
I think for me, my programming just went in phases, right? And it was in lockstep with how I progressed using the CoCo. So, early on was like Neil said, exploring the computer, and then, what's the next step, right? The next lowest barrier to entry is getting a few games, from your friends who, might have pirated some, God forbid, or get a cartridge from Radio Shack. So they get in the game phase, and then you learn OS 9, and you start getting more into the tools phase. So that's kind of my my usage kind of went in epochs that way.
Sure, that makes sense. Probably that's true for a lot of people. Unless you were someone who was already an adult when you got the computer back in the day, and you probably had a reason to get it, and you probably just spent a lot of time doing whatever that reason was. Of course, some of those adults, the reason to get it was to play with it anyway. So their stories might be more like those of us who were kids. They got something and, played.
There's something, though, thinking back about the magic of those times, now when you get older and you understand hardware and software, that wonderment is sort of taken away because you intrinsically understand how it's designed and you participate in its design. But whenever you're first introduced to it, back in the day when you were young, it was just a different feeling,
That's where the nostalgia part comes in, right? It's like you're just trying to kind of recapture that little bit of wonderment or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Hard to do, though.
Yeah, especially whenever you've got you work in the field, right?
Sure. Well, is there any more to mine here? Is there anything else? Or should we call this one a draw?
Good information.
Well, it's good to discuss, good to remember. But I think that's probably enough for now. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll return with the rest of the show.
It looks good for OS 9. We're coming forward with the config command. It all looks good. Roger, CHX2/D0/commands. I've got a blowout in the CoCo 3. Reseat the Gibby. It's no good. I've got garbage on the screen. Correction. Cycle power for 30 seconds. Both disk lights are on. She's breaking up.
The Color Computer, 6809, a computer barely alive. Gentlemen, we can rebuild it. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first advanced color computer. The CoCo 4 will be that computer. Better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster.
Pressing clear, I wish to watch a bouncing sphere. The cry goes up both far and near. CoCo 3, CoCo 3, CoCo 3, CoCo 3. Backup lightning roar of floppy, switching disks to make a copy. CoCo 3, CoCo 3, CoCo 3.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, we've got a treat for you now. We are joined by a couple of guys that have been active writing some software out in the real world community, and it's always pretty good stuff when it comes out. So we, of course, have, as he likes to call himself, the madman, Simon Jonassen. Welcome, Simon. And his partner of late, Mr. Paul Fiscarelli. Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing? Good to be here.
Very cool. Good to have you guys. So I know, at least as I understand it, Simon kind of reached out first to Neil, said that he might like to talk about some of the stuff you guys have been doing. I know you published a couple of things on Facebook showing some audio player stuff. Pretty high quality audio playback and the sample stuff that Simon sent me. So I wonder if you guys, want to start talking about that technology or where you're headed with that, or pretty much whatever you want to tell us.
To start with, my idea was you can make a really decent sample, but it's taking a lot of memory, especially if you're doing like 22 kilohertz or 11 kilohertz or something like that. It's going to take a lot of memory. So I wanted to compress the samples. My first approach was to do 1-bit differentials. I don't know if anyone knows the concept of differentials.
Your bits represent moving up or down from where you were before.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not storing the sample itself, you're just storing a direction. The 1-bit was fine, but the audio quality wasn't as good because it wasn't adaptive. So I thought, okay, let's just do 4-bit ADPCM, which is adaptive delta pulse code modulation. And if you look at a sample, a waveform over time, there's not much variation in the waveform over time. It's depending on the sample rate. So you're always going to be able to say, well, okay, I've maybe start at 80, and then the next sample's like 83, 84, 85, whatever. But you can represent that in a very, very small number. So I chose to say, okay, let's use 4 bits, where you've got 1 bit for the sign, positive or negative, and then we've got 3 bits for the actual number itself. So you can have like from your original sample to the next one, you can have a -8 to +7, which is just 2's complement 4-bit. Of course, sometimes something is going to fall outside of that, especially if you've got a large spike in your audio. But this is where the adaptive bit comes in, and it's not adaptive. It's like a pseudo-adaptive. It's my take on adaptive. So what you're doing is you're taking the largest number you can get. So if you've got a hop of, say, in your sample of, say, like 16, but the largest number you have is 7, well, you're just going to add 7 twice to get to 14, and then you're going to add 2 to get to 16. So your original sample is being reproduced. The number is being reproduced, but it's using a couple of extra samples to do it.
Right.
So, and I chose to, because the DAC is, it's 6-bit unsigned, but it's, if we can call it that, it's left-centered. It's left-centered. In other words, upper 6 bits, and that's a bit of a pain, because if you're wanting to be adding a 1, that all of a sudden becomes a 4. So what I chose to do was take an 8-bit sample, unsigned PCM, and say, okay, the first thing I'll do is to actually isolate that into 6 bits, the upper 6 bits. And then I will shift it right to the lower 6 bits, because then all my additions and my subtractions are going to be on smaller magnitude numbers. I don't know if that makes sense. And then you do your additions and your subtractions on your smaller magnitude numbers, because you've only got -8 to +7 to work with your 4 bits. You do your additions on the smaller magnitude numbers, and then you just shift it left twice to put it into the upper 6 bits for the DAC. So I don't know if that makes sense at all.
It does.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. What kind of compression do you get with your audio?
That's 2 to 1 at the moment. That's 2 to 1. So if you had, if we take the idea behind this would actually be that this is going to be for and I think Paul could probably chime in here. This is going to be for some tools for a game engine, because yes, I can play music right now, but that's not my intention. I just need to play sound effects and stuff like that. So normally, if someone had a sample that took, let's say, 8K of RAM, right now it's going to be exactly the same quality, but it's going to take half the size.
Right.
So, and we could. This is 4-bit compression. This is just 4-bit differentials. You could go down to 2-bit differentials. You could go down to 1-bit differentials. But I just wanted a decent quality.
Sure.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think Simon's been putting some demos out there of what he's been producing, the synth, and what it's capable of doing. The goal here, it's not so much to show the capability of the color computer and what it can do. That's part of it. We have seen demos in the past where people are showing what the 6809, the 6309, and what you can do with the 6-bit DAC or 1-bit audio. The key here, though, is we're doing it, or Simon for the most part, I'm just kind of putting a wrapper around it. What Simon's doing is trying to figure out how we can do it in a manner that we have CPU left over to do something with. So putting these audio samples together, that the target would be for them to play in the background while you have other things happening, gameplay or whatever, happening at the same time. Similar to what Simon and I did when we collabed on Run Dino Run. When he threw that synth out there, he was claiming that there was probably about 50% CPU left over to possibly do a game with. I just kind of took it and ran with it at that point. I had very basic of a 2D scroller kind of put together, and then I started putting Simon's synth in the background with it, and Run Dino Run was the collab effort that came out of that. And it was something that we put together in a few weeks, and part of that was on the backside, on the back end, we've been putting together some tools that will hopefully help, well, number one, us to be able to develop content for the color computer and do it more efficiently. But also at the same time, we're keeping in mind that others in the community might benefit from those types of tools as well. So seeing if we can possibly create a suite of tools that folks might be able to use in their development as well. So the key takeaway here is the work that Simon's doing, it's absolutely fantastic, but the target isn't just to show what the color computer can do as far as producing music, but to show how it can be used as a possible background player, as a possible synth for future game development on the color computer.
No, that's cool. It's
very cool.
I think a lot of people can understand some of these basic technologies, at least at a functional level. But sometimes it's hard for people to figure out how to put them together. And or you have people who understand things like, shoveling samples to the DAC, but they don't understand how do they get the samples into memory in the first place, or what samples, what order, how do they make them sound right. So it's nice to have some thought on tool combinations, things that work together. Are you guys looking for something kind of a big package that people come in and kind of learn the package and then start producing the tools? Or are you looking more at small tools on the corner that somebody who's just writing code and just needs a little something for this or a little something for that might be looking in your toolkit, or something in between? Or do you have a strategy?
Good question, isn't it? I think maybe, Paul, if you could bring up screen sharing, you could bring up the audio compressor here.
Yes, I think the tool, what's the right level of tools? And of course, it definitely depends on who you're working with and who you're targeting. But I definitely think we've had a few options that have come along. There was, I think, Dynasprite is one people are somewhat familiar with. There have been at least a couple of others. And then certainly you go all the way the other direction to like Toolshed or whatever, which is just an assembler, on a few other things. But like Dynasprite seems like a pretty cool package if you use the package. And people, one or two people have actually put together some pretty cool stuff with it. But it kind of seems like and I could be completely wrong, I haven't really dug into it, but it kind of makes it seem like you get married to Dynasprite. You kind of have to use their tools to put everything together. I think that scares a few people off. You're talking about a bunch of 50-year-old men playing in their basements. Probably a little ornery. Well, I see Simon's not in his basement. He has a lovely sunny view behind him. But anyway, you get a few ornery characters that don't necessarily want to be very flexible with so if the tools are too encompassing, while it might be helpful to some people, it's oppressive to others. So you kind of taking on a task, maybe a little thankless ultimately, but hopefully to produce some tools that are useful at least to you and to anybody else that kind of is interested in what they don't already know how to produce themselves. So there you go. Anyway, it looks like Paul's got something up now, so I'll quit vamping.
So to address one of your thoughts there, John, what we're ultimately trying to do, well, so first of all, the tools that we've been putting together are somewhat self-serving. as far as we're focusing on how can we make the content that we're developing more effective, more efficient, easier to produce. So the tools that we're putting together that we have been working on, we're trying to figure out, what makes our lives easier. But at the same time, figuring, okay, rather than just a simple command line script, could we make this somewhat visual and a little bit easier to understand and a little bit easier accessible for folks in the community? So that's kind of the way that we're thinking about it. That's kind of our strategy. So as needs come up, as we're working on content, whether it be for putting a demo or game development or something along those lines, or music in this particular case, we're addressing it on a case-by-case basis. So what I think will end up happening is we'll have a set of these basic tools that come out that, we'll start to make available for a specific need, but ultimately kind of build it up into more of a suite of tools that folks might be able to get their hands on. And as far as what we're targeting for like an output or what the end goal is, the end goal for the most part is to be able to create content that we could drag and drop into a cross assembler or assembler of your liking to be able to use that content and that data directly. So for this audio tool, for instance, basically what it allows you to do is to take a sample that's been manipulated through something like Audacity, and you basically can drag and drop that sample, that raw data, into this tool, and it'll produce an output for you where you can have FDB or FCB statements that you can use right in your source code.
Cool.
So just take and drag and drop a sample in there, and you can see kind of what the waveform looks like there for the sample, and you can see the diffs, what's happening with the sample. And then what it does is down here you have a little bit of settings that you can adjust. You can limit the sample to 60K, which is kind of important because you can only load such a large binary immediately into the CoCo. We're using VCC as a target here because it's easy drag and drop to test it rather than to have to mount a disk image to load content. So it makes it a little bit easier to just do a quick proof of concept. And then you can do a target system here where you have CoCo 1 and 2 versus CoCo 3, which is using the fast interrupt. Simon can definitely speak more to that. The tool right now supports 8K and 11K samples. So in this right-hand panel here, if you can see it, it basically is showing you in binary what your FCB statements look like. And again, you can just take this sample, save it to a bin, and use it as an include in your source code when you go to assemble. So it's basically that easy, but that's the kind of thing that we're targeting here is being able to take content, you manipulate it a little bit in a third-party tool, such as Audacity, and then you drag it into a tool like this, which does the conversion, and you have content that you can use in your assembly code.
Cool.
That's very slick.
That looks cool. That looks nice to use.
So Simon can definitely talk more to the tech behind it and what the FCB statements are actually producing here. Your diffs, you can kind of see what you're take a look at them and see the upper and lower nibbles of the bits there to get a better sense. And Simon can speak more to that.
Basically, it's like when you have a 16-color image. Each nibble would represent 1 pixel, but this is each nibble represents 1 differential. For your sound from your starting sample.
Sure.
And usually you're going to do like an and a F0 and a 0F and all this kind of stuff. And I just figured out, well, okay, I want to cut that out because that is taking time. So I just made a magic table of ANDed values. So I could cut out 2 cycles for each nibble. But yeah, basically it's just saying, okay, we're taking this value that we have right now in the DAC, we're starting at maybe 25, and we're taking this value, we're adding 2 to it, we're subtracting 5 for it, we're adding 10 to it, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's basically a representation of, but it is the true waveform. It is the true waveform at the end.
Sure. When you're using a tool and you start with your sample, your wave or equivalent, you drop it on the tool then pulls that apart and does the compression and then produces the data statements for the SCB statements for your assembly code. Is that the basic flow?
Yes, and it will dump the actual player in there as well, so you can actually just run it.
Oh, cool.
So you're getting the FCB statements and you're getting the player. So at the end of the day, you can actually just look at the actual code itself.
So Simon, just taking a look at the compiled output or the assembled output for the current synth that we've got in the tool, it looks like spending about 59 cycles in the interrupt. Does that sound about right? Is that what we were currently at with the old one?
About 59 cycles in the IRQ, but that's out of 114.
Right. So the reason why I was bringing that up is because that basically translates to about 50% CPU if we're servicing each time. So it gives you a sense as to what kind of CPU you have left over to be able to produce game content or demo content or whatever in that particular case. And that again is the target. That's the real beauty behind the madness is, as Simon's crunching these bits and reducing cycle counts, it's freeing up that much more cycles for additional content, the game engine and graphics and that sort of thing. So that's the key takeaway, I think.
I mean, the other thing.
That's cool.
The other thing would be that, yes, maybe it's taking up 59 cycles, which is just over half a scan line at 114 cycles in the fast mode. But at the end of the day, if you're just going to play sounds in a game, like you're going to play like a beep or a or come get me, something like that, the IRQ is not active all the time. If we take, say, Timberman, we used a fast IRQ on that for the sound as well, and the IRQ would actually, it would count the X pointers to get the next sample, and at a certain point it would have a compare X, and the compare X would say, okay, fine, I'm just going to insert an RTI instruction at the top of the routine because I'm going to disable myself. So it plays the sound and it disables itself, and your surrounding code. I think we've done this in Run Dino Run as well. Your surrounding code will actually say, okay, now I'm going to take away that RTI instruction and I'm going to put a NOP instruction there, no op instruction. So now it's going to play. So the only thing you have to do to play a sound is you have to feed it start address and end address and enable, disable. In other words, NOP or RTI. And when it's done playing the sound, it will disable itself.
That's cool. Clever trick.
Yeah, that is cool.
Timberman. I mean, if you take something like the chop, it's like duk, duk, duk. I mean, that takes what does it take? Less than a quarter of a second for that sound.
Right.
Right.
So why are you wasting 59 cycles on nothing? No, just acknowledge your IRQ with your LDA FF93 or whatever. Acknowledge your IRQ, and then just get out of there when you're not playing the sound. Because then you've got that much more CPU time to play with.
That's cool. Well, just now we're just talking about the two H-sync cycles and the one IRQ trick, which was pretty neat. I thought that was really innovative when you came up with that a couple of years ago. You basically kind of take two interrupt periods and you just miss the first deadline and that's a pretty cool idea. But you've got all these other little tricks, stuff like you've got your ways to play music while you're loading stuff off a disc, and I'm sure there's plenty of others to cite. Are you going to incorporate any of that support for any of that sort of things in these tools so that other people can play music while they're loading off the disc, or any other nifty madman tricks? Any of that coming soon?
I don't know. All my code is free. But it's up to you to read it.
Sure. Usually not that hard to read.
Yeah.
It's up to you to read it. But I mean, for me to be able to load music me to be able to play music while loading from the disc, I mean, again, just look at the guy with the baseball hat on and the earphones holding his face. I mean, I gave him a mad idea because I was scripting my way out of it, and it was taking like forever. And he's like, "Yeah, all right."
It's the same. I think it's the same thing. The same story with your Gimme Gimes demo, where you were trying to put blobs of picture data into your fast loader to get it to load content as quickly as possible, and you were a lot of that stuff you were doing by hand, and because there really wasn't any tools available. So that's where you had contacted me, and we collaborated, I think, for the first time, putting those that disk tool, the DMK edit, together, so you could put blobs, 256 byte sector size blobs, wherever you wanted to on the disk, and have it scripted with a custom sector table and whatnot. So I think I think that's where Simon and I really click. Is he comes up with some great ideas, but a lot of what he's doing, he's trying to he's doing a one-off almost, where he's trying to do it in a manner that he gets it done, where I see there might be an opportunity to make it more efficient, taking it beyond just scripting and making it possibly a little bit easier for folks that might want to take advantage of his tools and what he's done, see if they might be able to use those tools, his technology that he's developed in the future.
Right.
Yeah. It's something in the community you never know if you make it just a little bit easier, how many people will use it, or will anybody use it. And some things, no matter how easy you think you made it, nobody will use it.
That's a good point, John, yeah.
And some things, though, you put it out there and think, oh my God, I can't believe anybody would ever want to touch this. And the right person comes along and they figure it out and they can use it. It's like, if you ever dig into what I've released for my CoCo 3 video player, it makes sense to me, but it wasn't ever intended for anyone else to consume it. But Ron Klein decided he was going to consume it, and he had just enough Unix knowledge to be able to read my scripts. And he kind of went away for a month or so and asked me a few questions along the way, and then he figured out how to do the conversions himself. And so, like I say, it's one of the things that I cite an example when I'm talking to my wife, because she's one of these, computers are just so hard to use. You need to make things easier to use. Easy. She's one of those. Obviously, I love that aspect about her. But I always cite for her is like several years ago now, I heard about these Japanese schoolgirls that were sending messages to each other with their cell phones all the time, using something called SMS. And, at that point, that's when you'd hit 3, 333 11 2777. This is the worst possible user interface you could ever think of, right? And people loved it, and they learned how to do it. They adapted because it was an impressive and important technology that they wanted to use. So it's good to have like these tools. If nothing else, they're technology demos, right? People can see what you've done. Maybe you put together some kind of dummy game to illustrate how the tools flow together and how they're useful. There'll be something that you love and you put all your heart and soul into it, and you put it out there and you think it's the greatest thing, and nobody ever touches it. So don't be discouraged by that. There'll be other stuff that you kick it out and say, oh my God, this thing sucks, but it does the job, and people will pick it up and run around with it and worship it like it's a gift from God. So you never know, right? You just have to kind of keep doing your thing.
That's happened before now. People have put stuff out there. People are just like, yeah, okay, fine. It's like, I don't get that, so I'm not going to use it. And then some other times, it's like when I made SG Edit, and you, John, have used SG Edit, and right now people are actually asking, well, can you put SG8 in there? Can you put SG12 in there? Can you put SG24 in there? Yeah, I probably could, but it's going to be hard. But
right.
I mean, it's a tool I made back in the day for another demo I made. It's like, well, can I really be bothered to sit here with a piece of graph paper and plot out these bloody characters? Can I really be bothered to do that? No. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an image of every single character, and I'm going to put those into a HTML JavaScript interface, and I'm going to be able to drag and drop. I mean, it's about making life easier for yourself somewhere.
Well, the SC Edit, I think, may be the perfect example there, too, because I think if you just stood up and said, hey, I want to produce this website where you can edit demographics images, and I'm going to make it available to people, and you'll be able to produce assembly code from it. Everyone would have said, nobody wants that. Who cares? Why bother with that? You're just wasting your time, you know. But you did it, and it's a cool tool, and I've used it. I know a lot of other people have used it at least once or twice, at least just to sketch something up. And it is a handy tool. You took the time to do it. Now, if you decide you want to do something else, it's there. So you don't have to reteach yourself how demographics work because you already taught the computer how they work. So sometimes you produce these tools. Sometimes it saves your own health, your own mental health in the future. So very cool. Good to see that contribution to the community. So what's coming of this? Is there going to be a game? Are you working on a game now? Or do you have ideas? Do you want ideas? The community can think of plenty of stuff sometimes. That's not always practical, but if you want people to send you ideas, we can ask them.
So as part of this collaboration team, Simon and I have been working on stuff for a little bit, but Simon and Paulie Thayer have been working on stuff for a while too, and he's in the mix, and he's definitely got a ton of ideas. I know that he's teased the community with a lot of different things. So one of the goals here is to, what kind of things, what kind of tools can we come up with that makes his life easier to develop the content and be able to, bring some of these games out into the community. And Paulie is extremely busy behind the scenes with so many different things. We'll let him chime in at some point with that. But I think, sure. As far as content, there's definitely no shortage of ideas, but always welcome to, to ideas. And part of this too, John, though, I think, it doesn't necessarily have to be just me and Simon or me, Simon and Paulie or, whoever. I mean, it would be great, to have as many people as possible. At times that can get a bit chaotic, but people like to take things in their own directions at times. But, I think the more people we have involved in the community, contributing to projects and with a common focus, common goals, I mean, that just makes the community stronger, provides content for the community. I think that would be a great outcome of this, being able to bring the community closer together. So I would love to see that. And if that's just kind of a side effect of all this, then fantastic, that we've done a good job of doing that. So we'll see how that evolves, but definitely always welcoming ideas. And, I would love to hear what people are thinking of. And if they're, they just need that little bit extra to kind of get over the edge or kind of incentivize themselves or, motivate them to, all right, now's the time I'm going to do it because there is this tool available that I can, make content that much easier to produce, then, that's great.
It's kind of like, or at least what I hear, it's like to have a workout partner.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Joke on me there. But it's not, so if you're out there looking to maybe have get started on some workouts that are 6809 code workouts, we've got a couple of guys here that not only are they offering to help you out, but they've actually demonstrated either both with each other and with other members of the community that they will work with people, help you realize your dreams or your ideas. If you've got something in mind that you wanted to do or wanted to accomplish, they're out here and they've, demonstrated they're willing to work with people and take input and provide new tools and all sorts of things. So I think the point here is don't be shy and reach out to these guys. And the last thing we want these guys to do is get bored. So, or at least we don't want them to stay bored. It's good to hear from you guys, and it's great to hear that you guys are out here looking to reach out and spread some knowledge and spread some encouragement and help people to learn how to do some things that they might not know how to do yet. and might not even know they wanted to know how to do. But it would definitely be definitely a community asset. One thing we do hear from a lot of people is that our community is pretty friendly. Even when our community is having little spats, we still hear from other people about how we're generally pretty friendly. So that's probably a good sign. Guys like Paul and Simon and Paul Luther as well are good examples of that. People who work with the community and encourage people and help other people learn. Well, gentlemen, might should draw this to a close. We've been talking about an hour. Well, do appreciate you joining us and sharing with us. Telling us some of the tools, showing us some of the tools you've been working on, and sharing with us the information that you're looking to share and add to your team, and maybe work on some cool CoCo coding projects. Definitely some exciting things to think about coming in the community. Definitely in good hands with you guys, I'm sure.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you guys for including me as part of the discussion today. Real happy to be here and be part of it and joining Simon on this.
Definitely glad to have you. If you want Mr. Thayer to join, we could schedule another one of these before too long. I think that'd be cool too.
Paulie is again no shortage of ideas. He's got so much that he's working on, and anything that we can do to help him get his content out there is the goal here. So
cool, sounds great. All right, well, thanks for joining us, CoCo Cruisers. We'll take a little break here, and then we'll be back with whatever's left in the show.
This month in CoCo history. Welcome to This Month in CoCo history, where we explore events in the life of our favorite home computer. I'm Boise Pete, and this month we look back 37 years to a unique magazine that heralded the introduction of the microcolor computer. TRS-80 Microcomputer News was a multi-year experiment by Radio Shack to publish their own periodical that supported the TRS-80. In the June 1983 issue, the MC-10, as the microcolor computer was colloquially known, debuted on page 16 with an article by Linda Miller. The author introduced the new junior member of the color computer family with details such as the keyboard, interfacing ports, graphics resolution, and sound capabilities. A quick overview of the basic interpreter was followed by several commands to show colors and play music. Today, the MC-10 can be found in the closets and on the desks of CoCo collectors who show the tiny computer off with pride, and proponents like Jim Gary really make it shine. And that's this month in CoCo history.
Welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 61 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. This month I've got something exciting to share. I have finally finished the production work on Evan Wright's new game called 3D Monster Maze. This is a brand new game released for your CoCo on ROM Pack cartridge media. 3D Monster Maze requires a CoCo 1 or 2 with 64K of memory. No joystick is required as it uses the keyboard. The object of the game is simple. Avoid the monster, find the exit, and escape. You can use the arrow keys to move around in the 3D maze, or you can use the keys W to move forward and A and D to move left and right. You can type M to toggle the overhead map view. However, you will not see messages about the monster when in the map view. In each maze, the exit will always be located in a cul-de-sac. By exploring the maze, avoiding the monster, and checking the map view every so often, you should be able to locate the exit and escape. It's a simple but yet very addictive game. I must say, Evan did an amazing job on this game. The 3D graphics and animation are super smooth on the CoCo 2. In case any of you are wondering, this game is based on the ZX81 game by Malcolm Evans. Same last name, but I don't think any relation. But you can always check with Evan. If you are interested in obtaining this game for your CoCo collection, it is available in a deep blue or transparent clear game cartridge. Comes complete with game cartridge, manual, graphic insert, box, and even a collector button as added swag. Just like the old days when you used to buy games and get extra goodies in the box. You get the full package, just like Radio Shack would have sold back in the day. Please email me at neil@cococrew.org if you'd like to order your own copy. Well, there you have it. Another brand new game released for your CoCo. Until next month, happy gaming and CoCo forever.
Does your CoCo 3 run hot? Are you using an older model 512K RAM upgrade? Or maybe you have a 128K CoCo 3 that could use more memory. The Triad 512K memory board from Cloud9 is the solution you're looking for. Named for its unique triangular shape, the Triad only draws about 22 milliamps of current. That's an amazing 95% reduction in power. Less power means less heat and less stress on your color computer 3. The Triad 512K memory upgrade has been in production since 2013 with more than 500 units sold. So whether you need to upgrade to 512K or want to replace an older power-hungry memory board, the Cloud9 Triad is the proven, reliable 512K solution. Often copied, never duplicated. The Triad 512K upgrade from Cloud9. Cool stuff for your color computer. Visit cloud9tech.com for details.
Well, we have reached the end of episode 61 on the CoCo Crew Podcast. As usual, I'd like to thank our host, John Linville, for procuring all the news articles each month, Mike Rowan for editing and creating those amazing commercial breaks, Boise Pete, our CoCo historian, and most importantly, all of you who listen and support us each month. We appreciate it and also like to receive your feedback and comments. Until next month, happy CoCoing and retro forever.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo. 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 CoCo.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway? It's a blast from the past.
Dance, dance, dance. Dance, dance, dance.
CoCo.